In the last video, we covered 23 things about the iPhone 15. And now it's time to cover the iPhone 15 Pro with 33 things to know before buying. Also, we've now unveiled the 4th tease about our big announcement. Just one left until we reveal what we've been working on for a very long time in the background. Comment down below if you can guess what our big announcement is, and you might win a special prize. Okay, number 1, we get 2 unique colors. The blue titanium and the natural titanium, with the gold option being removed entirely. Then the stainless steel frame has now been replaced by a titanium frame, although it isn't made out of pure titanium, but rather grade 5 titanium instead. And it also contains a mixture of aluminium. The inside iPhone chassis is still aluminium, by the way. Apple claims that the frame is stronger than raw titanium, and the brush texture also makes it less fingerprinty. Then, thanks to its titanium frame, the new iPhones are also lighter by about 10%, which will make a big difference on the 15 Pro Max especially. Apple has also reduced the bezel sizes, although they're not quite as thin as the leaks were suggesting. They're only about 15% thinner. Still thinner though. And thanks to the thinner bezels, the bodies are now more compact too, which in combination with the new curved edges, make both Pro models much more comfortable to use. The Pro models also get a new action button that replaces the mute switch, but it doesn't quite work in the same way as we expected it to. So there's no single press and there's no double press either. You simply hold it to enable the action. By default, this is set to silent mode, and you can change that to launching the camera, switching between focus modes, and more, including even assigning Siri shortcuts to it, which essentially lets it do anything that you want. But since it can only be assigned to one thing at one time, if you set it to the camera, for example, you'll only be able to meet your iPhone by using the control center. I really hope that they fix this and allow us to have single and double presses too. The Pro models also get the new A17 Pro chip. The reason why I think it's called Pro rather than A17 is because next year Apple is rumored to have 2 variants of the A17 chip, with one of them being inferior, meaning that the standard models would then get the regular A17. The A17 Pro is also the world's first chip to be based on a smaller 3nm manufacturing process, with Apple focusing on both efficiency and performance, with 20% faster GPU performance thanks to the extra GPU core, and 10% faster CPU performance. The A17 Pro also enables hardware-based ray tracing in apps and games that support it. And we're also getting AAA titles thanks to the A17 Pro, such as Resident Evil Village, Resident Evil 4, Death Stranding, and even the new Assassin's Creed Mirage, which is insane. Of course, they will run at a lower resolution and graphics, but the fact that they're even playable on a phone is incredible. Also, the USB-C port on the Pro models is now 20 times faster than the standard models, with up to 10 gigabits per second speeds, as opposed to just 480 megabits per second, which enables much faster transfers. However, the cable that comes in the box is still USB 2.0. Speaking of charging, we just got this really awesome dual charger called the Base One Max from Nomad. It's very heavy, it feels super premium, it's made entirely out of glass, and it can charge both your iPhone and your Apple Watch at the same time. If you want to check it out and also support the channel, you can use our affiliate link down below. And the main camera is also exactly the same as on the 14 Pro, although it does include a new lens coating to reduce reflections, and this also applies to the ultra-wide module too. Apple also bumped the default photo resolution from the previous 12 megapixels to 24, so you get double the sharpness now. And the way this works is that the iPhone still takes a regular 12 megapixel bin photo for maximum light capture, but then also takes a 48 megapixel photo at the same time and then merges the two for a super sharp 24 megapixel image that's also great in low light. Brilliant. They've also added a 48 megapixel HEIF mode so that you can take 48 megapixel photos without having to take them in ProRAW. Also, something quite interesting is that now you can choose a default focal length for the main module, from 1x to 1.2 to 1.5. So if you prefer a more zoomed in look all the time, while still getting a 24 megapixel image, then you have this option. We also get log recording support, so that you can now record in a very flat picture profile, which you can then grade for much better dynamic range. And ProRes recording also gets a number of improvements. We can now shoot in 4K 60 ProRes as opposed to 4K 30. There's no more 1080p limit on the base 128GB of storage models like before, and thanks to USB Type-C, we can now connect an external drive and record ProRes directly to it, which is awesome, especially if you have the base 128GB model. Speaking of recording, the Pro models can now record using both the main and the ultralight modules, meaning that you can now watch those videos back in 3D on the Apple Vision Pro. Of course, the big camera upgrade is on the Pro Max model, and that is the new Periscope Zoom module. However, this is limited to just 5x as opposed to 10x like Samsung has, and the resolution of that sensor is also just 12 megapixels as opposed to 48 like on a Pixel 7 Pro and others. So the zoom range is better than before, but it's still not as good as the competition. However, the stabilization from this Periscope module is apparently really good, with Apple using a 3D stabilization system that should give us a very stable video when zoomed in, as well as much better low light performance than what we had before. This new telephoto module also enables a higher level of digital zoom on the 15 Pro Max, up to 25x from 15x. Although, I don't see this being usable outside of maybe 10 to 12x. The S23 Ultra, for example, is usable up to about 20x. Speaking of zoom, we also get the ability to zoom in 2x while recording cinematic video, which wasn't possible before. And portrait mode photography gets a number of improvements, with the biggest one being that portrait mode shots are now taken automatically, and then you can go into the editing options and change the focus afterwards, which is pretty cool. Same goes for night portrait mode. It seems like we're getting some improvements to its low light performance, likely thanks to the LiDAR module, which was rumored to be upgraded to the second generation. But probably the biggest camera upgrade here is that new Smart HDR5 processing, which should hopefully fix the blown out highlights that we've had before with Smart HDR4 on the iPhone 13 and 14. And judging from the sample images that Apple has shared, the highlights look perfect, and I'm honestly blown away by how good some of these images look. Aside from the camera upgrades, we also get Wi-Fi 6E on the Pro models, which bumps the speeds to 2.4 gigabits per second from 1.2. But you will need to have a Wi-Fi 6E router, as well as a crazy fast internet connection to even take advantage of these speeds. There's also a new U2 chip upgraded from the U1 that the iPhone 11 introduced. And really, the main advantage here is that you'll be able to precisely locate your Apple Watch Series 9 that also has the U2 chip, and likely the upcoming second-gen Apple AirTags with 3 times the range as before. There's also support for Thread, and no, I don't mean Instagram's Threads, but rather the Thread wireless protocol. What this means is that you'll be able to directly control any other Thread-supported smart home devices, rather than having to be connected to them via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. And good news, we also get more RAM on the Pro models, 8 gigabytes from 6. This has now been confirmed. And just like Aaron, who discovered this, mentions, yes, it is odd that we now have the same amount of RAM on an iPhone as we do on a MacBook. Apple definitely needs to give the base MacBooks more RAM. These new iPhones are also more repairable by both Apple and third parties, which is great. And even though Apple hasn't directly mentioned this, I do believe we also get some slightly improved battery life. The battery life itself is rated the same as the 13 Pros and 14 Pros, however, we do get larger batteries and that 3nm chip now. And if you guys remember, the 13 Pros lasted significantly longer than the 14 Pros, which were plagued with battery life issues, yet Apple still quoted the same battery life numbers. Of course, we will be testing this once we have them, so do stay tuned for that. And even though everyone was expecting Apple to increase the prices of the iPhones, they have actually gone down outside of the US. In the UK, for example, the 14 Pro used to start at £1,100, but now that's been dropped to £1,000. And the 15s have also dropped in price. The only one that increased was the 15 Pro Max, which now comes with 256 as the base, although the price of it is the same as the 256 14 Pro Max from last year. Feel free to subscribe for more iPhone 15 content in the next few days, and stay tuned for our big reveal very soon. I'm Daniel, this is ZONEofTECH, and I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.